All right, so we're chugging right along. We've got students, we've got assignments. The only thing that's going to make GradeRecorder a lot more fun is grades, right? So we've got the ability to add grades. You'll notice that I said the word add again this time. I did not say the word insert. And that's because what we really want is for a given assignment, we want only one score for each student, right? So if they did a terrible job on it at first, they got a 5 out of 10, and then they did a better job and they got like an 8 or a 9. We want that 8 or 9 to always clobber the old data. If we wanted to, we wouldn't have to be clever, and we could just look for an existing one to clobber. But we're gonna make sure it clobbers, and so we're gonna do something tricky, and that's we're going to make a key name be the row's username, right? Which is kind of a sneaky way to make sure that it clobbers it, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at how this system works. So there's going to be a form that comes in. This form is a little sneaky, is I guess the best way to say it, because if you look at main, getting a lot of tabs open. So if you look at main, you can see that there's actually two ways grades can come in. It might be a grade for a single person, or it might be a grade for a team. And we're just going to go ahead and write both of these kind of together because there's a lot of similarities, right? And so you'll notice that there is one path for add single grade entry, and there's another path for add team grade entry. And so there's actually two handlers that we're going to be using. So there's an add single grade entry entry and an add team grade entry, but there's a lot of similarities, so we'll knock them both out now. If we wanted to look at the form data that comes in, I'm sure that this is kind of hard to read, but you can see that there's a path, which is, if you look at the static version of the file, is add single grade entry, but there's JavaScript that changes that. And then you're going to pass in a student key or a team, and you're going to always pass in the assignment key because you have to know what assignment it's go for, and you're going to always pass in a score. So this is kind of like a one or the other type thing. And then you always have an assignment key, and you always have a score. Oh, and then if you're curious how the JavaScript works, in this version of the app, it's finding that form, and then it's changing the action to either be add single grade entry, or it's making the action add team grade entry. There's so many ways to do this type of thing, but this version does it that way, and so that's how we're going to deal with it. Our goal is to make sure that we are have a parent of the assignment. So we almost don't care about the main user anymore because we just care about that assignment. And it works out just fine because in order to make the assignment, they had to be logged in. Some security holes there, but I'm honestly not worried about it. It's going to use a key name that's going to be the row's username from the student, which is kind of a weird way to do it, but it happened to work out really well. And then we're going to load into it the score, assignment key, and student key. Let's go make these things happen. All right, so we'll start off in the add single grade entry, and what we're going to do is we're going to start off by getting things from that form. So we had the assignment key, it came in, so we're going to say self.request.get assignment key. And then, to be honest, we know that what we're going to do is this is the URL safe version, and what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and convert it all in one line. So we're just going to say ndb key, passing in the URL safe parameter of that guy, and then that's going to just go ahead and give us the key. Very similar story for the student, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste and say student key, and so we're going to use the string that was the student key that got passed in. That was the URL safe version. Convert that to an actual key object, and those are the things we need to do things with. We could also go ahead and grab the score. So we'll say self.request.get score, and everything in the form comes in as a string, but the score, as you remember, should actually be an integer property. We're going to go ahead and convert it to an int. If we were selling this app for like profit, we would do some checking to make sure they actually passed in an int, because right now if they pass in like a or 3.5, there's a good chance it'll crash, right? And I'm not worried about catching those things now. We'll assume that our users are going to use the app correctly, and we're not going to do a lot of protection just because it gets cluttered with protection code. All right, so now we've got the things that we need. So we're going to start making a new grade entry. So in order to make a new grade entry, we just say grade entry, and we specify things like who is the parent. So the parent in this case is the assignment key. What is the ID? This one's actually a little tricky because in order to get the ID, we need the student. So we actually did need one more thing. So we needed a student, which is fairly easy to get. We're just going to say student key.get. So it's going to pull that from the data store. Pulls are faster than writes, right? So it actually does it right in that line, and you've got an actual student. And the ID of this grade entry is going to be the same as the student's row's username. And that's the mechanism we use to make sure if there's an update to this person's grade, it clobbers the old one. And they only have one grade for the assignment. So those things are pretty good. After that, we're going to have to say what the assignment key is, which is just assignment key. We're going to have to say what the student key is, and that's just the variable student key. So again, it's kind of the formal parameter, and then the variable happen to be the same names. Again, you'll notice that this is the second time we've put in the assignment key. It's also the parent. So maybe there's a way to get rid of that one. To be honest, in this case, I think you need it because I think it's being used in a query. So I think you do need this one. The row's username from earlier, I think you could probably get rid of that one. But again, I really don't care. And a score. So those are the things that we need to put in a new grade for someone, and this will clobber the old one if there was something there. So let's just go ahead and say new grade entry put. So that will put it into the grades, and then we're going to kind of steal our plan from above. So we're going to say active assignment equals assignment.key. Nope, we never got the assignment from the data store, but we do have the assignment key. So to say assignment underscore key, and then we're going to get the URL safe version of that, and that's going to do the redirect. So we can go try this. We can do single grade entry now. So I'm going to refresh my page, and I'm going to say grades, add grade entry. So we have a whopping one student. We do have multiple assignments. What the heck, I'll put this in for lab 1, and I'll give myself a 100 on lab 1. Note that we cannot switch over to the team mode because that would work out badly for us because we haven't written that one yet, right? So once that finishes, you can see that for lab 1, I've now got a score of 100%. We should also be able to edit it, right? So if we say edit and delete, we click on this guy. I'll say, hey, he didn't get a 100. This is a champion student. Oh, that's a placeholder. He got a 105. So I'm going to go ahead and say add that grade entry, and you can see that it just updates the old one. So that's kind of neat, right? Let's go ahead and write the one such that you could add a grade entry by team, right? So if I do it by team, if I were to inspect element on this, what the heck, I'll do it. Once I said by team, you can see that the action on it switched to add team grade entry. So that's kind of a bit of trickiness there. Let's go write that guy. So I'm going to come in here, and some things are going to be similar. So you know what? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to start by just copying the whole thing. It's going to surely get me in trouble. Pasting it and then editing as appropriate, right? So the first thing that I need to do is I need to still get an assignment. So that's good. But there is no student key in this case. And there is no student. What we've got instead is we've got a team. So we're going to say self.request.get team. And then what we need to do is we need to assign that to individual students that are on that team. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a query. So I'm going to call it student query. And so I'm going to go looking for students. So we're good at queries now, right? And we're going to query for students that have the ancestor of the utils.getParent key. I'm going to make sure I use parent key this time for the user. Notice that we do need user this time, so we're going to have to add that. So we're just going to say user equals users.getCurrentUser. Interestingly, that we didn't need it before just because we didn't access that high level, but now we do need it. So we're going to get all the students for this parent key, and we're going to add a filter. I'm starting to wish that my policy was to add filter later, but I'm going to go ahead and add the filter. Technically, it has to come before the ancestor, to where student.team is equal to team. So there we go. So now we've got a query which has a filter. Oops, and I need 2 equal signs there. A team that is equal to, that's not an assignment, that's part of the filter. Again, I could have done this the same way if I had just said, made the query and then said dot filter by that guy. For what it's worth, I consider that a little bit more readable if you wanted to do it that way. I don't think there is any efficiency difference because you're preparing the query. Yeah, there couldn't be. You know what? I'm going to do it this way this time because I think that's more readable. So everybody for this user where the team is equal to that. And then we're just going to loop over them, right? So we're going to say for student in student query. And then for every student, what we're going to do is we're going to make them a grade. So I'm going to actually take this score, and I kind of wanted to do this before this loop. I'll just paste it somewhere up there. And really what we're going to do is very similar to this. So I'm just going to tab it over. We're going to make a new grade entry. Their parent key is the assignment key. The ID is the student.rows username, so that was great. The assignment key gets used again. That's super. And then the student key here, we don't have a variable called student key, but you know what? We've got the student, so to say student.key. And then we've got a score. And then the put needs to be inside the loop. So we're actually doing a bunch of puts. If there's 2 people in the team, it does it twice. If there's 1,000 people in the team, it does it 1,000 times. And the nice thing is that put is very fast. It does not wait for it to complete. It just writes an event. And if there's 1,000, that's no big deal. And so this is the first time we're actually happy that put is asynchronous, right? Because if we did 1,000, we don't want to wait for 1,000 seconds. We just want to going to put them all. And then to be honest, all those writes are going to happen in parallel. So you're not waiting for 1,000 seconds. You're waiting for 1 second, and 1,000 parallel things happen together. So you can see why put being asynchronous is so valuable. And this is the first time we've actually benefited from that value. And then the last thing is we're going to redirect the page after that. This is pretty fun, so we're going to have to go try this guy. Before we can really try it, though, we're going to have to refresh the page for one, but we're going to have to add another student that's on the team. So for team 10, I'm going to add another student. What the heck? I'll add Dr. Baltel. So Dr. B, I happen to know his username is just Baltel. He is going to also be part of team 10. Note that with the way we did teams, like capitalization is important, and there's a lot of things like that are important. So for homework 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say add grade entry. I'm going to do it by teams. There's only one team. There's team 10, and I'm going to give us both let's say a 50 on homework 1. We'll pretend like it was out of 50 points, right? So we both did good, and you can see that it successfully adds both of us 50. If you wanted to try to do an edit, what it really does is it does an edit by an individual. You could go into teams and you could say, hey, team 10, set it to 55. Not sure if I like that placeholder thing or not. That might be confusing. And what it'll do is it'll update them to be 55. And you don't have to worry about getting multiple copies of the data because of the way we did that key name on the ID. So there's some clever things that we did there. And so that's kind of it, right? So the last thing that you need to do is you've run it all locally. Everything was working. It's time to deploy this guy. So we should have the deploy all set. One thing that I kind of like to do when I deploy is I go visit my URL. So for me, it was FisherDS, GradeRecorder.appspot.com. And probably what should be there for you is nothing, right? Or like if you did a hello world. For me, of course, I have things there because I've been goofing around with it. But I kind of like to have the site up, and then I'll go ahead and right-click on it and say Pydev Google App Engine, upload, and it will make you put in your credentials, right? So I put in my username and then my password, and then it does its thing and it says finished. And then for you, I mean, you can go right back to it and you can race it and you can try to click refresh. But there's a good chance that for yours, refresh won't work. And that's because the indexes are still building. If you wanted to kind of like observe those things, you could go to console.developers.google.com. You could find your App Engine app and you could see if your indexes are still building. I'll go ahead and do that too. So here's Fisher DS Grade Recorder. And then what I want to do is I want to go down to storage. And then within storage, I want to go to indexes. And I can see if my indexes are still indexing or if they're serving. Probably if you were fast enough, they will say like that they're still indexing and they're not serving. You can see that there's a ton of indexes in this, right? So you maybe don't have as many as me, but there's a lot of different indexes, which is really pretty neat, right? And then once you've got the deployed version, play around with it for a little bit, right? And you could even like try it on a mobile UI to see if you can add things there, and give yourself a number of students. I even recommend that you try the import roster, right? So you can see what my simple roster is, or you could add our classes roster, and you could give people different grades, right? So it's a fun little app. The moral of the story on this app, I think, is best described by this picture right here, right? So this is describing our data model. So we had this really clever thing where everybody has a parent that's based on the email address of the person that's in, and then we had assignments and students, and then we had grade entries, which pointed up at the assignment, and then we did this clever thing where we had a name key on these two guys, and that was to make sure it clobbered old students or it clobbered old grades within an assignment. And the only one that was random is kind of funny is the assignment itself. And then we picked the various properties that were on each entity, and you can see how the design of this data store model is just so important. That's it. If you're in this class and actually taking it for a grade and credit hours, there's a link in the slides for actually submitting this URL. But we're done with GradeRecorder. All right, nice work on that one. See you next time.